This next major area of new capability in Oracle REST Data Services 3.0 release, I think is perhaps the most interesting one and really shows the potential of ORDS. And this is for auto enablement and query filters. So what this does is automatically generates about a dozen basic operations on single tables. So here's a list of the things that it will automatically set up for you in a very simple process flows. There are things like get schema and table metadata, get all rows in a table, basically do a SQL equivalent of a select star, get one row using the primary key, get or post table rows using a query filter, which I've shown you examples of and drilling into in a little more detail in the next slide. And then do an insert, do a bulk insert, do an upsert, do a delete. So this functionality is provided by SQL Developer 4.1. There's also a PL/SQL API that drives this. So the other part of this is a query filters. And let me show you how that works. Give you a flavor for it. I'm not going to try to go into all the details, but give you a good flavor for it. So it allows you to specify predicates and sorts in JSON. So we're not using SQL here. We're using JSON, which is something that many new developers are very comfortable with using and very easy for them to adopt. It follows a kind of a query by example kind of format. Key thing to know is it only works on single tables, not multi-tables yet. But it does basic things and quite powerful things. So it works with date, number, string data types, about a half dozen operations for each one, and does basic Boolean and or operations. So I have an example here, a fairly sophisticated example. Again, it is a query by example kind of format. So we're going to be doing a query on the IMP table, and one of the fields in the IMP table is salary. And so we're going to be looking for those employees whose salary is between 1,000 and 3,000. We're also going to be looking for employees who have a hire date that is less than or equal to this date, which is April 23rd, 1981. And we're going to use an AND condition, so both these things have to be true to select an employee. And then when we get those results, we're going to do an order by, an ascending order by the employee name. So that's basically what it's about. Now let's go and do an example of that. So I'm going to pull up SQL Developer 4.1. I have a connection to the PDB Connect database, which I've been using. And here is the schema I'll be working with, which is Scott. So I'm going to connect to that. And the first thing, I need to enable the schema. So what you do is you right-click on the schema and select down at the bottom. It says REST Services, Enable REST Services. So I'm going to select that. And then there's a very simple process flow. Basically says I want to enable the schema. I'm not going to set authorization of the security yet, just keep things simple. And click Next, and then I'm done. So I'm basically going to click Finish, and it's going to process that command to enable the schema. So this hasn't set up anything yet. It just enabled the schema to be used for auto enablement. So what I need to do is select auto enablement for a particular object, and I'm going to use the IMP table for that. So again, I'm right-clicking on the IMP table and going down to where it says Enable REST Services. And you have a similar process flow where I need to click Enable Object. I'm not going to set up the security. I'm not going to click Authorization Required for this simple case, but it just set up enablement. And that's it. Again, I click Finish, and it gets processed. So now for the IMP table, all those operations I showed you before now are generated and enabled, ready to go. So to demo that, I'm going to pull up a REST client, and the one I'm using is called an Advanced REST Client. There's a number of them. You just Google REST Client, you find all sorts of ones that are available. They're all basically do the same thing. They're all pretty good. So what REST client allows you to do is specify a URI. So you can see we have a URI that points to the IMP table. It connects to the local host, the port I've set up ORDS on, and the Scott schema and IMP and so on. And I'm going to be doing a GET. And you just specify the resource and just specify that the request is a GET. That basically means I want to do a select star. I want to select all the rows. So I'll send that GET now off through ORDS to be processed, and I get the result. So you know that things worked right when you get this 200 OK status response. And then you can see in JSON the results of doing the select star from IMP. And it's about 14 rows, and you can see each one contains the employee number and the name, the job, and so on. So that's the first thing I want to show you. This next thing I want to show you is a query filter. So for that, I'm going to need to do a post operation. So I have that already set up, tested before, so I just pull that from my history. Note that the URI is still the same. It's exactly the same resource. It's the IMP table. But instead of doing a GET, I'm now doing a POST. So a POST is a particularly powerful request in that I can specify data in the body of the request, or what is sometimes called the payload of the request. And here is that JSON predicate and sort request that we went through before. Salary between 1,000 and 3,000, hire date less than or equal to April 23rd, 1981. It's an AND condition, and I want to do an order by, an ascending order by employee name. So you specify that in the body or payload. The other important thing is the content type. So this particular content type specifies that I want to do a query with a query filter. If I set a different content type, it may mean I want to do an insert of this JSON object into the table. So that's the third important thing. So it's the URI, it's the request, it's the body, and then the content type, or actually 4 things rather than 3 things. So I send that off. And the result I get shows that it worked, status 200 OK. And now I can see that I have the results that satisfy that predicate. So the salary is between 1,000 and 3,000. The start date is before April, less than or before or equal to April, was it 23rd, 1981. And I think I get 3 rows that satisfy that predicate and sort. And that basically is how the auto enablement and the query filters work.